With this market getting extremely volatile, with Bitcoin up and down and can't make up its mind, I believe that Polygon Matic is at a position in which it will see a very dramatic move very soon. And so in today's video, I'm going to be talking to you guys about the importance of what we have been seeing over the last few days and what I am expecting going forward in order to prepare for that move and exactly how I'm going to go about trying to maximize my gains with Polygon Matic and in crypto in general. So with that being said, let's go ahead. Let's get straight into it. So looking at Matic, one thing we've been tracking, of course, has been this breakout of the downward sloping level of resistance. Of course, we have this key level of resistance in which we have been following realistically from about the end of December to March, so about 3 months or so, in which we were trapped below this key level here. Now, one thing that we talked about though was that although we were trapped below it, things were starting to line up quite well. We had a key area of confluence here, of course, between 133 and 125, and we said that every time we came down to it, we were bouncing, and so it wouldn't surprise us at all to use that zone to again bounce out from that level of resistance. Now, following that bounce out from that level of resistance, one thing we saw was that the price of Matic got extremely overextended extremely fast. We look at something like the Bollinger Bands, for example. One thing you can say is that we near immediately went up to touch the top side of the Bollinger Band envelope, which historically does lead us to see some falls and, a bit of a retracement. As you can see, every single time we've touched the top side of the Bollinger Band envelope, it has been followed by a bit of a pullback. So considering the fact that we were already at the top side off this breakout, we somewhat concluded that there was a strong chance that the price would come back to retest some of these key levels of support, which possibly could be this downward sloping level of now support or our key area of confluence. Well, it just so happened to do both. So at this point, one thing we can see is that although we did see those huge wicks yesterday with the rest of the market following, Matic has been doing a great job of holding this 133 to 125 zone of confluence. Now, just to keep it simple, a zone of confluence is a zone or a price range in which the price will have these multi-interactions with, in which it'll seek resistance or support at that level, or it would be consolidated within that level, called just a range at that point. But what we can see, for an example of why this is a zone of confluence, you can see the double establishment of support here, support establishment here, support establishment here, and here. And we go back, you can see some more here. We saw resistance here, etc., etc. Every time we interact with this zone, we see that the price does react in a certain way, deeming it, of course, a zone of confluence. So looking at this, one thing we can see is that we have established a double level support or a double bottom at this point at about 133. Now, as we did see this double bottom forming on the closing base perspective, we can see that we did wick straight down to our key level of support here, which was our previous level of resistance, right? Looking to flip resistance into support at all times. So considering the fact that we are holding up quite well on our closing base perspective on our zone of confluence, mixed in with the fact that we did a wick down to this previous level of resistance and flip it into support, that tells me that we definitely have the potential to start to see some growth from this point forward, if of course the market does allow. Now, do understand that this thing is going to follow Bitcoin one way or another. So if Bitcoin is capable of holding support at this point and continuing its journey to the top side, so will Matic. But we have to always analyze your individual altcoins as well to gauge where would the good buying points be, because you can't solely go off Bitcoin. You can't say, oh, Bitcoin's at 42,000, so I'm gonna buy Matic. No, you need to understand where your buying points and selling points are for your individual cryptos if you are investing into them. So looking at Matic, what I would go ahead and say is that to put a disclaimer on this video, if at any given point we close below $1.25, nothing of what I am saying matters. Completely irrelevant. At that point, we have established a very, very strong lower low to the downside, lower than all of these wick lows in which we saw back whenever we started to see the inflation news come out and the Ukraine situation happening. All of those, we will have set a lower low than them, and that is not a good look. And I will go ahead and say completely invalidates everything that I am going to say in this video, okay? So understand, we go under 125, we get a daily close under there, forget it. Just forget what I'm saying. We're going to really have to reanalyze this thing. But while we are holding up well, while we are sitting strong above these key levels of support, I personally am looking for 3 things that are going to enable me to make my next purchase. Now, you guys remember I did a little bit of buying back here. I told you guys, I think we're going to hold support here. And although we wigged down a couple times, I told you guys in the last video, I said, yeah, I'm accumulating around 140. I think that's a good accumulation zone, and I think the support will hold. still under that belief as long as we're above 125. So with that said, let me talk about the next point in which I will be looking to purchase. So personally speaking, one thing that I've noticed is that we have been interacting quite well with some of our moving averages. They seem to be kind of a indicator of where the short-term and mid-term price move is going, so we're not going to forget that. So what we're going to look at is our 20 simple moving average to begin with. What you can see is that as we do come up to it, we have been establishing it as resistance, and when we're going down to it, many a time we will establish it as support, and of course that has been the level that has held us up into these bull runs in which we have seen. As you can see here, all of this support establishment. So we know that this 20 simple moving average is important. Not only the 20 simple moving average, the 50 simple moving average is equally as important, because you can see the trips in which we've made down to it on multiple occasions, held it, and continued to the top side. But the moment we start to lose it on multiple daily perspectives and back test it and fail it, that's when we start to really see some losses. Back test, and you can see that it does lead us to see losses when we are below it. So considering the fact that we have two very important simple moving averages above us, the 20 and the 50, I will go ahead and say that at minimum, I will not do my next accumulation until we clear them. Very simple, because look at the 50 moving average. Look again at what it has a history of doing. We fall below it, we back test it, we fail the back test, we set a new regional low. At this point, what that looks like is us doing this. And I don't want to see that happen, because realistically, if we set a new regional low off of a rejection of the 50 moving average, well, realistically, that has us losing our zone of confluence, which is a very, very macro bearish thing. Okay. So I definitely would want to see that happen. But not only do I want to see the 50 and the 20 cleared, I would actually rather us see this clearing of the macro Fibonacci 0.618 to 0.786 level. Now we're just going to clear this thing off, and I'm going to show you guys what that means. So one thing we can see is that as we started to make some progress towards the upside from this from this breakout right here, when we broke the macro trend line, what you can see is that we did a great job, right? We broke the 50 moving average, we held it on this back test on a daily perspective. Not only that, we back tested it again and held it, and we cleared the 20 simple moving average. Looky here, we held above the 20 SMA and continued to the top side. So both of these key levels held, but then something happened. Whenever we looked at the most recent macro regional swing high down to swing low event, and we brought up our 786 to 618 level, what you can see is that we ran into resistance. And although we cleared the 20, although we cleared the 50, we were unable to get through this level, and it did push us back towards the downside to revisit our range of lows, which is historically what happens. And so for that exact reason right there, what I'm going to go ahead and say is that even if we do clear the 50 and the 20, that's a great sign. That has us at about $1.50. We get above 150, we're looking good. I'm actually going to say that I'm not going to do my next accumulation until we are capable of clearing this zone this time and getting back above $1.62. If we're able to get back above 162, it does clarify that we are in a position to really see some growth. We will have seen the daily MACD cross. We will have likely seen the weekly MACD finish its cross. And at that point, it will confirm to me that we're not seeing a bounce of this nature, in which we will just do something like this and then crash back towards the downside, because at that point, that is just simply, again, macro bearish. So my whole game plan right now is I'm aiming at 162. My three-step confirmation process is getting through the 20, getting through the 50, and then getting over 162. And if we are capable of doing so, I will then do my next accumulation. And at that point, the purchase we made at 140 will also be up roughly about 17%. Okay, so I am under the belief that this can happen. I think it's very possible it can happen, especially if Bitcoin does open that door. But realistically, we need to make sure we are above 125 at all costs. And at the point in which we lose 125, completely invalidates everything I'm saying right now. And we have to restart, we have to reanalyze, and we have to start to figure out what happens next. But until then, that is my game plan. I think that this support is holding up quite well. I do like this accumulationary phase in which we are in right now. And even if we do wick one more time, capitulate to the downside, I definitely could see us bouncing up towards this 162 level, at which point I will do some more accumulating. Now, the reason I'm not just buying a whole bunch here, people are saying, well, why would you be buying higher? Why wouldn't you buy lower? Is because you have to consider your opportunity cost. The risk of us falling to the downside at this point is still pretty strong. And so at that, we need to understand that it's not just buy it and it goes straight up. Sometimes you need to let it go up to get the confirmations that will continue to go up, and then buy it as close to that bottom of the beginning that you possibly can. So with that said, that's going to be realistically about it for today's video from me. That's my thoughts, that's what I'm thinking, and that's how I'm going about it. And of course, I hope you guys did enjoy. If you did, you can always let me know easily and simply by smashing that like button and subscribing to the channel if you are new. And I will see you all next time. Peace.